But I was speaking to you earlier when we were just chatting briefly before about how you've really been bringing this spiritual energy into your music. And I've really genuinely admired and had so many amazing meditative experiences listening to your work.
Oh, good.
I want to start with, where did your spiritual journey begin? Where did that journey for you kind of ignite before you even thought about bringing it to your music?
My spiritual journey was ignited when I think I was like 4 or 5. Miyoko, do you remember when grandma passed away? Right? I was maybe like 4 or 5, I think. I was really young. And it felt like I had just met her. Maybe, you know, your baby mind the time is a little different. So in my memory is that I just got to know her, you know, maybe like, it was probably, I knew her for like a year, at least in my memory of being, you know, such a young baby person. Didn't get to spend that much time with her, but I fell in love with her immediately. She, this little Japanese lady, she used to let me play with her wrinkles. She didn't speak a lot, very quiet, very just like cute to me. She was like a kitten. And she passed away. And I was just like, And I remember asking my dad who is a pediatrician, he would always explain things to us in a scientific way. So I'm like, well, where did she go? He's like, well, she went to sleep and she didn't wake back up. And I'm like, okay, so, and then what about like her body? And he was like, they burned her body. And so in my mind, I'm like, they burned her body, huh? You know, so I'm thinking of all of these things. And at the same time, we were preparing for her funeral, which was a Buddhist funeral. And I guess that was my first funeral for sure, but my first sort of spiritual encounter. And at the same time, my grandmother would take us to Sunday school, to a Christian church. And so I would hear about, you know, how I would hear about praying to Jesus and God. And so I was like, I knew the story of Jesus, and now I'm learning about Buddha, and I'm 5 and my grandmother has passed away, and they said that she's burned, you know, they burned her body. But I'm like, but I don't think that she just went, you know, she's not gone. So just from that moment, I was like almost even fascinated with death, you know, and like, okay, not even necessarily trying to figure it out, but just kind of like, yeah, fascinated is the word. And loss as well. Just, you know, always trying to figure out what different feelings mean. And I remember when she passed, I think one day after, because our whole family would have to get together and practice like the ceremony for the offering of the incense and everything. And one day we were all doing that, and I remember I went outside and I saw like butterflies flying around, and I was like talking to the sky. Like I remember when being this little baby and like out loud saying like, you know, talking to God and saying, you know, you can bring my grandmother back. Like, it's okay. I won't be scared. Like if she falls from the sky, blah, 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 blah. And then I saw 2 butterflies go by, and I was kind of like, when they flew by, I looked up in the window, and my older cousin was looking at me, talking to myself. And so I was like, oh, okay. But then I saw the butterflies, and something about that moment kind of made me feel like, oh, okay, she's here. You know, she didn't have to like drop out of the sky type of thing. And just from that moment on, I remember I've always been contemplative. You know, when I was little, even I'm the youngest of 5, or I grew up in a household of 4 older siblings. So it was really loud. And most of that time I would just be like observing and just, you know, trying to figure things out or just staring at things and just like, I feel like really I was like meditating on them now that I think about it. But yeah, so it really started at that moment.
That was a wonderful story and a wonderful sharing of that experience.
Thank you.
And it's amazing to see how much you remember from when you were that young.
Yeah, that's one of my most vivid memories. And I've written it down a few times throughout my life to see like if it ever, if it changed. But it doesn't. I think that was a real one.
That's wonderful.